when I finally put together the 17 stories in Dancing with Tombstones, I thought that I would put them in 4 sections, and I was hoping that the sections themselves would kind of be like that palm reading trick, where you put something that's sort of specific but also generalized enough where everybody can kind of, just through their own mind, relate their lives to the sections. And I'll tell you what they mean to me. We did Girls, Psychos, Tools and Tech, and Martyrs and Sacrificial Lambs. And for me, the first category, girls, in a more general way, I think women run the world. The most influential people in my life, professors, my wife, they have all been women. So that's what I bring to the table in terms of that category. The second category, which is psychos, I think all of us are psycho, man. I think we're all walking around wearing masks, and just beneath the surface, we have our days when they're just wriggling worms or just fire or evil. And we get really good at social etiquette and covering it up. So that one means something to me, right here. Tools and Tech is interesting. You can bring anything you want to it. For me, when I first got married in 1989, it was before I was writing. I started writing in 1992, actually. But I had to make a living, and I ended up selling power tools, which is sort of crazy. If you know me, that's not my side of the brain. I'm not mathematical and logical. I'm very emotional and creative and stuff like that. So I had to blindly memorize all this shit. And just the fact that I know that if you're going to drill a 3/8 hole in concrete or anything above, half inch or something like that, you want to use a rotohammer like a Bosch 11212 VSR. You want to use an SDS bit which clicks right into the chuck without a key. And you use one of these for the bigger holes like 3/8 and up, because in a rotary hammer, as opposed to knuckle gears in a hammer drill, there's a little air pocket between the piston and the striker, and you get a lot more force, a lot more bang for your buck. Now, just the fact that I know that is fucking blasphemy. I mean, it's so not me. And my undergraduate degree, from the early 80s, was in theater, and I only took that so I had something I could pass. So I'm qualified basically for nothing, and then I'm working in the tool business. I get married. As I said, I started writing in 1992, and I went back to school and I got my master's in education. And now I felt like I was on the right track. I taught high school for 10 years. And then I went back and got a second master's in literature, and that prepared me to teach college, which is where I am now. So this category, just the name of the category, means a lot to me, because I think a lot of us spend our lives doing something we don't want to do for 8 to 12 hours a day so we can have a home, so we can have a family. And I think that may be one of life's biggest tragedies. Which brings us to the last section of the book, which is Martyrs and Sacrificial Lambs. And I'm not trying to get too deep with this thing. I do write psychological horror. I try not to be too metaphorical. I don't want to be known as a literary writer necessarily, who writes, with a cow in a pasture sniffing at a microwave on top of a pile of manure, and then people argue that it's Marxism. I mean, that's just not my thing. I'm a genre writer. But I do believe, if I can go a little bit symbolic, that our soul very often is what's sacrificed. That's the sacrificial lamb, the martyr, because, as I said, very often we do things that we don't want to do so we can have some comforts in life. And interestingly, talking about horror and stuff like that, a lot of people say I'm not really a horror author, and I would agree. Now, that doesn't mean that I shy away from a splatterpunk scene if I've got to do, something that shows violence, as long as it's poetic and it's not hyperbolic, that's, I'm going to go there. That's a staple of the genre. But for the most part, I feel like I write tragedy because I feel like that's more important than the jump scare. I think that the world that we live in, maybe I see it a little bit differently. Maybe the cloud is colored a little bit darker for me. But I think some of the greatest beauty that we go through is when we go through something tragic.